على هذه الأرض ما يستحق الحياة. على هذه الأرض ما يستحق الحياة.
احنا ان شاء الله مبرمجين زيارات لرؤساء الجمعيات والرئيس النيابة الخصوصية والمسؤولين في وظرف المواقع وين إنتاج وتكديس الفسفوجيبس في العالم، سواء في روان في فرنسا وإلا في بلجيكا وإلا في إسبانيا. معناها على الأقل باش يشوفوا كيفاش المواقع هذه هي أقرب إلى الجنة. تلقى القدس نتاع الفسفوجيبس لهنا والبيسين والناس تعوم فيه.
Estamos en la zona de vertidos de la industria de fosfatos de Huelva.
Here we are at the residual waste area of the phosphates industry in Huelva. For over 43 years, mainly the two companies of Fertiberia and Foret have been discharging the residual waste here. Annually, around 3 million tons of residual waste have been discharged here. This entire situation has created a semi-lunar landscape that covers an area of 1,200 hectares of marshland, in which 130 million tons of phosphogypsum have been discharged. On December 31, 2010, Fertiberia stopped because of the final verdict issued by the Supreme Court. After 7 or 8 years of litigating, the permission to discharge in this area has expired, and they have to stop doing it by December 31, 2010.
Y se paraliza el vertido el 31 de diciembre del año 2010.
We are going to enter an area with radioactivity levels that are seemingly high. That's why we have to protect ourselves. We are wearing special suits to prevent an important part of the radiations, but there's yet another part that is inevitable. We also have gloves to protect our hands because they are going to be very close to the ground. And of course, we cover our shoes to prevent some particles that adhere to the shoes, and we carry them with us to our houses later.
Nos lo llevemos después a casa, ¿no? Ninguna de las autoridades, ninguna de las administraciones quieren entrar a solucionar este problema que tenemos aquí en Huelva, este grave problema que tenemos en Huelva.
Nobody from the administration wants to come here to Huelva to fix this problem we have. This is a big problem we have here in Huelva. The Nuclear Security Council has declared that the levels they found here, the radioactivity levels, are according to the maximum values permitted by the law. But here we're using a Geiger counter, and it says that the results of the Nuclear Security Council are wrong. The counter is measuring the radioactivity level, so there is no trick. It works like a thermometer for measuring temperature. Whoever comes here to check it, this is radioactivity. It's not possible to lie. The only thing you have to do is to interpret the values that are shown here and then multiply them by the hours of the day and the days of the year so that we can have the result for 1 year. Then you can compare it with the values permitted by the Spanish law to see if this is all right or not. In this case, these values we have got are 140 or 150 times higher than the maximum permitted by the Spanish legislation. Obviously, it means that these residual wastes must receive a process, and they should be considered as radioactive residual wastes. Another option is that the Nuclear Security Council does not want to recognize that there is a residual waste deposit in the open air, in the Huelva's marshland, with an extension of 1,200 hectares and 130 million tons of residual waste, in which there are around 5,000 tons of uranium oxide. There's an idea that we are in a security deposit, isn't it? As if the deposits were in a safe place. Here you can see perfectly how these residual wastes are constantly coming out of the marshes. Some time ago it rained, and we can still see how the level of acid waters is increasing and they end up into the estuaries.
a las rías. Otro problema de estos residuos es, además de...
Another problem with these residual waste is the heavy metals, due to the radioactivity they have, the acid, and the huge amount of acidity coming out of the marshes, right? Look at this. This is wood. Look how it is. It's like this is due to the acid, right? It's broken by the acidity levels.
Los niveles de acidez las rompen. Esto demuestra eso, que el nivel de acidez aquí es altísimo, altísimo. Este es el valor más alto que yo he medido hasta ahora aquí en la balsa de Fosfógibs. Esto es una bestialidad, esto es increíble. Esto es un residuo radiactivo.
This is a proof that the acidity level here is very high. It's amazing. This is a radioactive residual that should be removed. It's not possible to keep it here in the marshland. Right now, the level of radioactivity that the equipment is showing is 140 or 150 times higher than the levels permitted by the Spanish and European legislation. From this kind of radiation, that is alpha and beta radiation, we are protected. But there's also a huge amount of gamma radiation here, and we're not protected from it. Right now, we're exposed to high levels of gamma radiation. This kind of radiation is carcinogenic, mutagenic. It's able to cause genetic changes and therefore cause cancers.
Genético y lógicamente pues producir después cáncer, ¿no? El 31 de diciembre de 1998.
On December 31st, 1998, there was a storm in Huelva with a lot of wind. I arrived home at noon after work. That day I had to go to work. I started hearing noises like that of water. It was as if I had to work close to a water deposit. Then I looked through the window and I saw water coming out of the marshland. A huge amount of water was coming out from the northeast wall. That day I got dressed, I put on my rain boots, and I came here to the phosphogypsum deposits. It was almost impossible to go through because the wall had been broken and a very huge amount of water was coming out and almost the whole marshland was full of water. It was impossible to get through the road because it was a bit dangerous. We think that from the marshes, around 500,000 cubic meters of acid water and heavy metals could have escaped directly to the banks of the Quinto River. That river banks have become contaminated. Fusfógibs says that they want to recover the marshland system. Around 1/3 of the whole marshland has been contaminated since the beginning of the discharge of the residual wastes. We are talking about 700 hectares in the area, and in this area that we are now, the security base. What does Fusfógibs want to do with all of it? First, they want to employ a layer of polyethylene plastic on the residual waste, then a clay layer, and finally a layer of vegetal soil in which the marshland could be. That's the recovering plan that Fusfógibs is talking about. Obviously, the only thing they want to restore is the landscape, not even the visual restoration. We could call it a cover for the residual wastes, sweep them a bit under the carpet. That's what the company is talking about now. Those deposits contaminate in different ways. One of them is the air pollution. The air pollution, mainly radon gas emissions, comes from here. It's a radioactive gas that is accumulated in the smoke that goes to Huelva and around it, and then it's accumulated in the area. This gas is toxic and carcinogenic. The scientific measuring of the radioactive elements from the deposits have found pollutants inside the city of Huelva.
Están detectando en estaciones de medida de contaminación de Huelva, ¿no? De la propia Huelva, dentro de la propia ciudad.